Destined to Parent a Problem Child by one Izuku on AO3, read by Lily6645. The author has chosen to use no archive warnings. Chapter 2. Summary. Aftermath of Shota and Izuku's first meeting.
What?
Hizashi's involuntary use of his quirk was stopped midway by Shota, who, after releasing his own quirk, reminded his husband not to use his quirk with a pointed look. He received an apologetic one in return before hearing his husband speak again, this time in a level voice.
Vigilante you're investigating is a teenager, and you let them go? Joe, I knew you had a soft spot for kids, and don't get me wrong, that's like super endearing, but your retelling of this doesn't seem to have any part where you tried to get this kid back on the right path or take him into the police.
Shota sighed as his husband finished before responding.
I know. I wish I could go back and do a number of things differently. I had a chance to speak to him, to speak to Orizu, who is infamous for ignoring any attempts at conversation, at least according to what I've heard.
He paused, running a hand down his face as he tried to find his next words before continuing.
I may sound crazy, but I think even if I had a chance to go back, I wouldn't be able to change the outcome much. As soon as I saw him, my body just didn't want to act against him. Every part of me was screaming to protect him. I knew I should have at least tried to capture him. I probably had a million chances to do so in that interaction, but I couldn't find it in me to lift a finger against him.
He paused, taking a breath, before continuing.
I don't know what came over me, Zashi. And maybe I was just imagining things, but it looked like he was having the same reaction to seeing me. Maybe a bit different internal monologue, but he seemed to be in the same daze.
He paused, making air quotes before continuing.
I was.
Shota finished taking a sip of his coffee as he waited for his husband to respond.
You're leaving something out, aren't you?
The blonde said, his eyes narrowing in suspicion as he looked at his husband before continuing.
Joe, I want to hear what you think. I know you have a theory thought up. Let me in, please?
He pleaded, giving his sorry attempt at puppy eyes, which Shota was absolutely not swayed by at all. Nope, it was 100% his own choice, and his alone, to share this long, short theory.
For a split second, I thought that maybe it could be a soul bond. I obviously can't confirm that unless I touch him directly, but the only skin he shows is the lower half of his face. That's little to no chance of confirming it, at least not in any time soon.
Shota paused, debating in whether or not to continue. He was quick to decide as he saw the encouraging look in his husband's eyes.
It was just a split second though. There's no way I have a soul child. That bond is for just roughly 10% of the world's population, and I've already gotten lucky enough to have a soulmate. He paused, squeezing his husband's hand that was resting on the table as he mentioned their own bond before continuing. It just doesn't seem logical, I guess. It feels like wishful thinking. Maybe I just thought of it because he's a kid in the wrong place.
He spoke, but was cut off by the blonde.
Feelings and instincts tend to win over logic. We've both seen plenty of children in the wrong place. Have you ever felt like you did with Oruzu when you looked at any of them?
Questioned the blonde, grabbing for Shota's hand and squeezing as a reminder that he was there, which he greatly appreciated. The silence hung between the couple for a long moment while Shota thought, coming up with an answer shortly after.
I can't say that I have. No. It feels wrong to say that, but I've never felt that way towards any other kid in a bad place. Yeah, it breaks my heart to see any kid hurt or going down the wrong path. But with Oruzu, it was so intense and overpowering that it's not a comparison between the two, I guess.
He finished taking a breath as he admitted the most probable outcome. The same outcome that Shota couldn't decide whether he feared or hoped for. Maybe it was a bit of both? An alarm rang from his phone, shocking Shota from his racing thoughts. A quick glance at the time proved that he had about 30 minutes to get ready before he had to go teach his students.
Gonna go get ready. Love you.
He said quickly before finishing off his coffee and standing from his seat, making his way to the bedroom to change into his hero suit, shortly followed by a visit to the bathroom to freshen up. In roughly 20 minutes, Shota was out the door, the blonde following shortly after him, and to their car. Climbing into the dingy apartment, Izuku called home after the interaction with Eraserhead left robotic. He still felt like he was in that weird daze, how it felt when they first locked eyes. Theories were already racing through his head of what it could have possibly been, easily scratching the thought that it could have been his quirk, because his quirk is erasure. Izuku couldn't find any connection between erasure and what had come upon him, moving on muscle memory as he changed out of his vigilante gear and into the first somewhat comfy item he'd grabbed in his drawer. He froze, his mind settling on the most possible outcome. No, that's no way that was a soul bond, right? Soul bonds are realized through skin-on-skin contact, not eye contact. Izuku paused, his mind supplying a solution to the contradiction almost immediately. No. Skin-to-skin contact is what confirms the bond. Eye contact could be what causes both ends to realize it. As soon as his mind supplies this, he couldn't help but groan and bring his hands to his face in what he couldn't tell if it was fear or exasperation. Eraserhead was already looking to capture me. If he's thinking the same thing as me right now, it's gonna make avoiding him so much harder. Izuku let out an audible whine of annoyance as he flopped back on the small futon he had, his hands going to rake through his hair out of instinct. No, scratch that. There's no if about this. There is absolutely no doubt that Eraserhead is perceptive. In extension, he'd be smart. He's definitely realized it as well. Izuku ran a hand down his face before giving up on trying to keep his eyes open. The long night of vigilantism drawing most of his energy. Making a mental note to be extra cautious from now on, especially because he saw your hair, heard your voice, and knows your age, Izuku let sleep take him under. Walking into Nezu's office was never easy, at least not for an intruder like Shota. As soon as he stepped in, the rat-like principal spoke. "Hello, Shota. You don't come to me out of your own free will often. So, would I be correct in assuming you'd like my assistance in an endeavor of yours?" The overly cheerful voice questioned.
Yes, actually, it's,
Shota paused, trying to find how to put it into words before he was interrupted. "Please, sit. Let's talk over tea," the rat said, somehow already pouring some of the tea Shota heavily disliked into a cup and sitting it on the table in front of him, the rat waiting for him to follow, which Shota did.
I'll try to keep this brief. I trust you, so I see no problem in telling you that I believe I've found my soul child.
It was silent for a long moment. Not much could shock the odd principal, but something as rare as a parental soul bond seemed to have done that. "That's amazing, Shota! Might I ask why you'd need my assistance in such a personal matter?" he finally managed to say after recovering from the initial shock.
Yeah, the child in question more than likely knows as well. Based off of his reaction, that is, and seems to be against the idea. He escaped almost immediately. Also, did I mention that he's a vigilante? Specifically, Oruzu.
The principal was silent for a few moments, probably thinking, before speaking up once again. "You did not! Though, knowing that he is a vigilante explains why he'd run. You are a hero after all. He probably thinks that even if he is your soul child, you turn him in. But that is probably because he is the type of person to do just that. Take the right course of action rather than the selfish one," he said, not waiting for Shota to speak before continuing. "Do you know anything about this child? Like his age? Any easily identified features, quirk, and etc.?"
He told me he was 16. He has some shade of dark hair. I couldn't get a proper look due to both timing and lighting. And his quirk seems to be something along the lines of manipulating air. But I suspect there's more to it. That's just a guess, but when he did use it, it felt like all the heat was sucked from the air. It could be his quirk, or maybe it was just chilly. That's all I got, though, he finished.
Well, that isn't a lot to work with, but I do enjoy a challenge. You want me to help you figure out this child's identity, right? The rat questioned.
Yes, I hope knowing more about him may make it easier to gain his trust and possibly help him in any way he'll let me, that is.
All right, I'll see what I can do. For now, let me know if you encounter him again, and any details that may be gained from any interaction.
I can do that. Thank you for your time,
Shota said, standing before offering a polite bow and exiting himself from the room. Hopefully, his nightly patrols would garner some results, but he had no doubt the kid was going to avoid him at all costs. That is the end of Chapter 2 of Destined to Parent a Problem Child by Izuku. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please go support the original author. Link in the description below. Hope you have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, kittens!